The first blood splatter across the training arena floor sent Xander Simmons into instant survival mode. He had less than a second to register what was happening. His Zenturian partner had just collapsed, body convulsing wildly as microscopic puncture wounds erupted across his blue-scaled skin. "What the hell?" Xander shouted, dropping to his knees beside the alien. "Zerk, talk to me." The Zenturian's 6 eyes rolled back, mouth foaming as his body temperature rocketed upward. Around them, more of the training squad began dropping, first the Vixarians, then the Quiliar. Only the humans remained standing. "Emergency protocol," Commander Trisk bellowed over the intercom. "Training arena breach. Unidentified biological weapons detected." Xander glanced upward, squinting at the air around him. That's when he saw them tiny dark specks floating through the recycled atmosphere of the combat training facility. They moved with purpose, zigzagging through the air toward any non-human target. "Seal the arena," someone shouted, but Xander wasn't paying attention to the panic erupting around him. Instead, he was watching with narrowed eyes as one of the specks landed on his forearm. He felt a tiny prick as the creature pierced his skin. "Oh," he said casually, raising his hand. "It's just a mosquito." With a quick movement, he slapped his palm against his arm, crushing the insect with a small smear of blood his own and the mosquitoes mixed together. The emergency sirens blared louder as medical teams in full hazmat suits burst into the arena. 2 Rigelian officers nearby stared at Xander in horror. "You touched one," the first officer gasped, mandibles flaring in alarm. "Do not move, human. You require immediate quarantine." Xander wiped the smear on his uniform pants. "It's fine. Just a mosquito bite. We get these all the time on Earth." The second Rigelian was already backing away. "Those are Xanthar death carriers, the most feared biological weapon in the Galactic Alliance. How are you still standing?" Xander glanced around the training room where his alien teammates were writhing on the floor or being loaded onto stretchers. Medical staff swarmed around them, administering emergency counteragents while scanning for vital signs. "Death carriers," Xander repeated, suddenly realizing the gravity of the situation. "Wait, these things are killing everyone." Commander Trisk's voice boomed over the intercom again. "All human personnel report to Medical Bay for immediate examination. All non-human personnel require Level 9 decontamination." This is not a drill. As medical teams rushed into the arena in sealed environmental suits, Xander found himself being hustled toward the quarantine zone, still trying to process what had happened. His mind flashed back to summer evenings in Georgia, swatting mosquitoes while grilling on the back porch. Those annoying little insects from Earth, the ones humans had been casually swatting for millennia, were apparently deadly biological weapons to the rest of the galaxy. Hours later, Xander sat on an examination table in the medical bay as Dr. Nellera, the station's chief medical officer, stared at his blood work results with all 4 of her eyes widened in astonishment. "Fascinating," she whispered, her pale green skin flushing darker with excitement. "Your blood contains antibodies that neutralize the Xanthar neurotoxin completely." Xander scratched absently at the bite on his arm. "So you're saying these death carriers are just mosquitoes, the same bugs we have on Earth?" Dr. Nellera's head tentacles twitched. "Not exactly. The Xanthar are bioengineered weapons designed to target specific neural pathways in most sentient species. They inject a compound that causes rapid neural degeneration and organ failure. The mortality rate is over 98%, but not for humans, apparently not." She tapped her tablet, bringing up a holographic display of human DNA alongside the toxin molecular structure. Your species seems to have evolved alongside similar insect vectors. Your immune systems recognize the toxin components and neutralize them instantly. Commander Trisk entered the medical bay, his massive frame filling the doorway. The draconian scales were a dull gray, a sign of extreme stress in his species. "Status report," he demanded. Dr. Nellera straightened. 17 affected, sir. 12 stabilized, 3 critical, 2. She paused. 2 didn't make it. Xander's stomach dropped. "Zerk, stable but unconscious," Dr. Nellera replied. "The Zenturians appear to have some natural resistance, though nowhere near what humans possess." Commander Trisk turned his attention to Xander. "Simmons, you were first on the scene. What exactly did you do when the Xanthar landed on you?" "I just swatted it," Xander demonstrated with a slap against his arm. "Like this. It's instinct for humans. These things have been biting us for our entire evolutionary history." Trisk's reptilian face was unreadable, but the tension in his posture was clear. "This attack bears the hallmarks of the Valorian separatists. They've been threatening biological warfare for months." "Sir," Xander said, "if these things are so dangerous, why would anyone use them as weapons? Wouldn't they just spread everywhere and kill indiscriminately?" "The Xanthar have a short lifespan, approximately 6 hours," Dr. Nellera explained. "They're engineered to seek specific biological signatures, attack, and then die. Perfect for targeted strikes," Trisk's communicator chirped. He checked the message and his posture stiffened further. "Security has identified a breach in the ventilation system. The attack was definitely internal." "A saboteur?" Xander asked. "Most likely." Trisk's eyes narrowed. "And they're still on the station." Before Xander could respond, the medical bay doors slid open and Admiral Corvin strode in. The entire room snapped to attention. "At ease," the Admiral said, his voice surprisingly soft for his imposing stature. "I've been briefed on the situation." "Simmons, you handled these creatures like they were nothing." "Yes, sir. On Earth we call them mosquitoes. They're annoying but generally not lethal to humans. We've evolved alongside them for millions of years." Admiral Corvin exchanged glances with Commander Trisk. "Then it seems we have both a crisis and an opportunity. The crisis is obvious. We have a saboteur releasing biological weapons on my station. The opportunity," he looked back at Xander, "is standing right here." "Sir?" Xander asked, confused. "The Valorians have been developing these weapons for years," the Admiral explained. "Until now, we've had no effective defense. But if human biology provides natural immunity—" "Doctor," Nellera interrupted. "Admiral, preliminary tests suggest we might be able to synthesize an antitoxin from human antibodies. It won't provide complete immunity like humans have, but it could buy crucial time for treatment." "Make it happen," the Admiral ordered. "And Simmons, I'm assigning you to a special task force. We need to find the saboteur before they release something even humans can't swat away." Xander nodded, though his mind was reeling. Just hours ago, he'd been in a routine training exercise. Now he was being drafted into counter-terrorism because he could swat mosquitoes. "Sir, with respect, I'm just a tactical officer. I'm not qualified for you're uniquely qualified," Trisk cut in. "The saboteur likely has more of these weapons. You can handle them without protection. That gives you an advantage no one else on this station has." Before Xander could protest further, alarms blared throughout the station. The Admiral's communicator lit up immediately. "Report," he barked into the device. "Sir, security breach in Sector 7. More Xanthar detected in the civilian quarters." The Admiral's expression hardened. "It seems our saboteur is escalating. Simmons, you're with me. Now." As they rushed from the medical bay, Xander couldn't help wondering how swatting mosquitoes had suddenly become a strategic military skill. Sector 7 was in chaos when they arrived. Station security officers in sealed environmental suits were trying to evacuate civilians while scanning for the tiny deadly insects. Xander immediately spotted several of the mosquito-like creatures hovering near air vents. "There," he pointed. "They're concentrated around the ventilation system." The Admiral nodded to a security team. "Seal those vents. Simmons, can you deal with any of the carriers you see?" Xander stepped forward, feeling bizarrely like an exterminator rather than a soldier. "I'll do what I can, sir." As he moved through the sector, Xander found himself swatting the deadly insects with the casual efficiency of someone who'd grown up in mosquito country. Each time his palm connected with one of the creatures, the nearby aliens watched in a mixture of horror and amazement. "How are you touching them without protection?" a young Phylexian asked, her feathery appendages trembling in fear. "They can't hurt humans," Xander explained, crushing another Xanthar against his neck. "On our planet, we deal with these all the time." After dispatching dozens of the insects, Xander noticed something odd about their distribution. They weren't spreading randomly throughout the sector, they seemed to be concentrating in specific areas, almost as if they're being directed, he realized aloud. "Admiral, these things aren't just released randomly. Someone's controlling their movement patterns." The Admiral joined him, keeping a safe distance from the remaining insects. "Explain." "Look at the distribution," Xander pointed. "They're clustering around specific quarters, ignoring others completely." "These are targeted hits." The Admiral's eyes narrowed as he studied the pattern. "The ambassador quarters. They're targeting diplomatic staff." Xander nodded. "Which means our saboteur isn't just trying to cause chaos there after specific individuals. Or trying to trigger an interspecies incident," the Admiral agreed. "If representatives from multiple worlds were killed by these weapons on an Alliance station." "War," Xander finished grimly. Just then, Xander's communicator buzzed. It was Dr. Nelra. "Simmons, I've analyzed the Xanthar you provided. They're receiving directional signals, low-frequency pulses that guide their movement." "Can you trace the source?" Xander asked. "Already working on it. The signals originating somewhere in the maintenance tunnels below your current position." The Admiral didn't hesitate. "Simmons, take a security team and find that signal source. I'll coordinate containment up here." Minutes later, Xander was leading 3 security officers through the narrow maintenance tunnels that ran beneath the station's main decks. Unlike the pristine corridors above, these passageways were utilitarian exposed conduits. Control junctions and support struts created a maze of industrial infrastructure. "The signal's getting stronger," said Lieutenant Vazrik, a Chalaxian whose natural infrared vision made him invaluable in the dimly lit tunnels. 200 meters ahead. As they approached, Xander held up his hand, signaling the team to stop. "I hear something." The faint sound of equipment humming came from around the corner. Xander motioned for the team to take covering positions, then carefully peered around the bend. A makeshift laboratory had been set up in a junction room. Electronic equipment surrounded several transparent containers filled with what appeared to be thousands of the mosquito-like Xanthar. A figure in an environmental suit was adjusting controls on a signal emitter. "One subject," Xander whispered into his communicator. "Armed." Lieutenant Vazrik's infrared scan revealed more. Detecting concealed weapons, and the containers appear to be rigged with remote release mechanisms. Xander considered their options. A direct confrontation could result in the saboteur releasing all the Xanthar at once. While he was immune, his team and everyone else on the station would be at risk. "I'm going in alone," he decided. "If those containers open, I'm the only one who can survive it." Before his team could protest, Xander stepped out into the open, hands deliberately visible. "That's quite a mosquito farm you've got there," he said casually. The figure in the environmental suit spun around, reaching for a concealed weapon. Xander raised his hands higher. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," he warned. "My team has you surrounded, and unlike me, they're authorized to use lethal force." The saboteur hesitated, then spoke through the suit's external speaker. "You should be dead. You were in the training arena." "Yeah, about that." Xander took a careful step forward. "Turns out humans and your little pets go way back. They're just mosquitoes to us. Annoying, but not exactly the doomsday weapon you were hoping for." "Impossible." The figure's voice betrayed both surprise and frustration. "The Zonthar are engineered to be lethal to all known species." "All known non-Earth species, maybe," Xander corrected, taking another step. "Evolution's funny that way. We've been swatting these things for millions of years." As if to demonstrate, Xander casually slapped his arm where one of the loose Zonthar had landed, crushing it without concern. The saboteur's body language shifted from confident to uncertain. "Stay back. I can release all of them with one command." "Go ahead," Xander shrugged. "I'll be the only one standing and you'll have no leverage." "Or," he gestured to the saboteur's suit, "you could try to shoot me, but my team will take you down before you get off a second shot." For a tense moment, neither moved. Then the saboteur lunged toward the release controls. Xander dove forward, tackling the figure to the ground before they could reach the console. They struggled briefly before Xander managed to pin the saboteur's arms. "Now let's see who's behind this," he said, reaching for the helmet seals. The environmental suit's faceplate slid away to reveal a face Xander recognized immediately. "Dr. Marax," he gasped in surprise. The station's assistant xenobiologist glared up at him. "The Alliance is weak. They refuse to use the weapons necessary to end the border conflicts. The Valorians have been developing these weapons for years while the Alliance does nothing. So you thought killing a bunch of diplomats would help?" Xander tightened his grip as security officers rushed in to take control. "It would have forced action," Marax spat. "War is inevitable. I was just accelerating the timeline, ensuring we struck first." As security led the saboteur away, Xander stared at the containers of deadly insects. Each one represented thousands of potential deaths except to humans, who would simply find them annoying. "Simmons to Admiral Corvin," he said into his communicator. "Saboteur apprehended. Dr. Marax from Xenobiology. We've secured what looks like their entire Zonthar supply." "Excellent work," came the Admiral's reply. "Dr. Nellera has successfully synthesized an antitoxin. All affected personnel are responding to treatment." When Xander returned to the medical bay hours later, he found Zerk conscious and recovering, though still weak. The Zenturian's blue scales had regained some of their luster. "They tell me you caught the saboteur," Zerk said, his voice raspy. Xander nodded. "Dr. Marax, apparently a Valorian sympathizer trying to trigger an interspecies conflict. And these deadly weapons." Zerk gestured to the bite mark still visible on his neck. "To you, they are just common pests, mosquitoes," Xander confirmed. "They've been around since the dinosaurs on Earth. They spread some diseases, but mostly they're just annoying. Every human learns to swat them as a kid." Zerk's 6 eyes blinked in sequence, a Zenturian expression of amazement. "Your species evolved alongside such lethal creatures. No wonder humans have a reputation for resilience." Before Xander could respond, Admiral Corvin entered the medical bay, accompanied by a group of officers Xander didn't recognize. "Simmons," the Admiral said, "these are representatives from Alliance Intelligence. They'd like to speak with you about Earth insects." One of the representatives, a tall Arcturian with silvery skin, stepped forward. "Officer Simmons, Your natural immunity to the Xanthar has revealed a significant gap in our biodefense strategies. We believe other Earth organisms may provide similar advantages. You want to know about Earth bugs? Xander asked incredulously. Not just insects, another representative added. All Earth organisms with potential defensive applications. Your planet's evolutionary history has produced natural countermeasures to bioweapons we considered undefeatable. Admiral Corvin's expression was serious. The Valorians have been developing these weapons for years, Simmons. Dr. Marax may have been stopped, but she wasn't working alone. Intelligence suggests the Valorians have an entire arsenal of similar bioweapons. And you think Earth bugs might be the key to defending against them. Not just bugs, the Arcturian clarified. Earth's entire biosphere represents an untapped resource for biodefense. Your planet evolved in isolation from the rest of the galaxy for millions of years. The resulting biodiversity contains countermeasures we never considered. Xander thought about the implications. Earth had only joined the Galactic Alliance 15 years ago. Most of humanity's contributions so far had been cultural music, art, cuisine. The idea that Earth's mosquitoes might be strategically valuable was almost laughable. "What do you need from me?" he asked. "We're forming a specialized task force," Admiral Corvin explained. Xenobiologists, defense specialists, and Earth natives like yourself who understand their planet's organisms. Your experience today makes you uniquely qualified. 3 weeks later, Xander found himself aboard the research vessel Biome, surrounded by specimen containers filled with various Earth insects and microorganisms. The ship was headed to the Alliance's primary research facility, where the newly formed Earth Biological Defense Initiative would begin its work. Dr. Nellera had joined the mission as Chief Medical Officer, fascinated by the potential of Earth's biodiversity. Zerk, fully recovered, had volunteered as security liaison. "I still cannot believe these creatures are considered harmless on your world," Zerk said, watching with fascination as Xander handled a container of mosquito larvae. "Not harmless," Xander corrected. "They spread diseases like malaria and West Nile virus, but we've developed treatments and preventions over centuries." Dr. Nellera approached with her tablet. "Our analysis of the Xanthar venom compared to Earth mosquito saliva shows remarkable similarities. The Valorians essentially weaponized what Earth mosquitoes do naturally, just with more potent neurotoxins, which humans evolved to resist," Zerk added. "Exactly," Dr. Nellera confirmed, "and that's just one example. We've identified 17 other Earth organisms with potential applications against known bioweapons." Xander shook his head in amazement. "So the bugs we've been swatting for millennia might help save the Alliance." "More than that," Dr. Nellera said, her head tentacles curling with excitement. "The preliminary tests suggest human immune responses might be adaptable to other species through synthetic antibodies. We could potentially provide immunity to the entire Alliance." As the biome accelerated to FTL speed, Xander stared out at the streaking stars. 6 months ago, he'd been a tactical officer with average prospects. Now he was part of a critical defense initiative because he could swat mosquitoes without dying. Life in the galaxy was strange that way. The research facility orbiting Proxima Centauri was the Alliance's most advanced biological research station. As the biome docked, Xander could see dozens of ships from various Alliance worlds already gathered. The Earth Biological Defense Initiative had clearly become a priority. "All this attention because of mosquitoes," he muttered as they disembarked. Dr. Nellera overheard him. "Not just mosquitoes, Xander. The preliminary data we sent ahead has already sparked interest in dozens of Earth organisms. Your planet's biodiversity represents a paradigm shift in biodefense strategy. They were met at the dock by General Thaddeus, the facility commander. The massive Jovian's atmosphere suit whirred softly as he greeted them. "Welcome to Proxima Station," he rumbled. "Your specimens have been assigned to high-security labs already. We're particularly interested in beginning work on the mosquitoes, I believe you call them." "Yes, sir," Xander confirmed. "Though we've brought samples of several other Earth insects and microorganisms that might be useful." "Excellent. The Alliance Council has made this initiative top priority. The Valorian threat continues to grow, and intelligence suggests they are accelerating their bioweapons program." As they walked through the station toward the research wing, Xander noticed the diversity of species present. Researchers from at least 30 different Alliance worlds worked side by side, studying Earth organisms with intense curiosity. "It's strange," he said to Zerk as they passed a lab where scientists were examining honeybees. "On Earth, we take these creatures for granted. Some, like mosquitoes, we actively try to avoid. One species' pest is another species' salvation," Zerk replied philosophically. "The universe has a peculiar sense of symmetry." The next few days were a blur of briefings, lab setups, and specimen cataloging. Xander found himself constantly explaining basic Earth biology to fascinated alien scientists. The concept that humans had evolved alongside organisms that were deadly to other sentient species seemed to both terrify and impress them. On the fourth day, Dr. Nellera called an emergency meeting. Her face was grim as the team gathered in the main conference room. "We've received intelligence from the border outposts," she announced without preamble. "The Valorians have deployed a new bioweapon against the colony on Vega Roman 9. Initial reports indicate massive casualties." The room fell silent. General Thaddeus stepped forward. "What type of weapon?" "Unknown, but it appears to be airborne, similar to the Zonthar but microscopic. Victims experience total respiratory failure within minutes of exposure." Xander felt a chill. "Do we have any samples?" "A containment team is en route with specimens," the general confirmed. "They'll arrive in 12 hours. In the meantime, I want every Earth organism with respiratory applications prioritized for testing." Xander spent the next several hours helping the xenobiologists sort through Earth's vast catalog of respiratory symbionts and pathogens. The work was exhausting but vital. Somewhere in Earth's biological history might lie the key to countering this new threat. Late that night, as Xander was cataloging various fungal spores, an alarm sounded throughout the station. "Emergency in Docking Bay 3, the automated system announced. "Containment breach detected." Xander's blood ran cold. Docking Bay 3 was where the ship from Vega Roman 9 was scheduled to arrive, but it wasn't due for several more hours. "They came in hot," Zerk said, rushing into the lab. "The containment team's ship was damaged. They had to dock. Emergency protocols." "The specimens?" Xander asked. "Secure, but there's a problem. One of the team members was exposed during collection. They're in isolation, but medical doesn't have a treatment protocol yet." Without waiting for orders, Xander headed for the medical wing. If the new bioweapon was anything like the Zonthar, there was a chance human biology might offer some insight. He found Dr. Nellera outside the isolation chamber, studying readouts with growing concern. "How bad?" he asked. "Terminal, if we don't find a countermeasure," she replied without looking up. "The pathogen attacks the respiratory system at the cellular level, preventing oxygen absorption. It's similar to some Earth viruses, but engineered for exponentially faster progression." Through the isolation chamber's viewport, Xander could see the affected team member, a Caladian whose normally copper skin had turned ashen gray. Medical staff in sealed suits worked frantically around the bed. "What do we know about the weapon itself?" Xander asked. "It's not like the Zonthar," Dr. Nellera explained. "This is a modified fungal spore that germinates in the respiratory tract. Once active, it produces a toxin that blocks oxygen transfer." Something clicked in Xander's mind. "Wait, a respiratory fungus? That sounds like something we have on Earth." "Many planets have fungal pathogens," Dr. Nellera said, "but the modification pattern here is unique." "No, I mean specifically. This sounds like aspergillosis, a fungal infection humans sometimes get. It affects the lungs and can be deadly to people with compromised immune systems." "Doctor." Nellera's head tentacles stiffened with sudden interest. "Aspergillosis. We haven't cataloged that yet. Is there a treatment?" "Several antifungal medications," Xander confirmed. "The most common is amphotericin B, I think. My cousin had a mild case after a construction job." "Doctor." Nellera was already accessing the Earth Medical Database. "Here it is. Amphotericin B binds to ergosterol in fungal cell membranes, creating pores that cause cellular death. If the Valorian weapon uses a similar cellular structure, could it work?" Xander asked hopefully. "It's worth trying," she said. "We can synthesize it quickly, but I'll need a human blood sample to test compatibility with Alliance physiologies." Within an hour, Dr. Nellera had synthesized a modified version of amphotericin B, adapted to target the Valorian fungal weapon specifically. Initial lab tests showed promising results. The medication destroyed the fungal spores without harming host cells. "We're ready to try it on the patient," she told Xander and General Thaddeus. "But I should warn you, this is experimental at best. The Valorians have likely modified their weapon specifically to resist standard treatments." "We have no alternative," the general decided. "Proceed." They watched anxiously as the medical team administered the treatment to the dying Caladian. For several tense minutes, there was no visible change in the patient's condition. Then, gradually, the oxygen saturation readings began to climb. "It's working," Dr. Nellera whispered, her professional demeanor briefly giving way to relief. "The fungal cells are breaking down." Over the next 6 hours, the patient's condition stabilized. The treatment wasn't a cure. The damage to the respiratory system would take time to heal, but it had stopped the progression of the weapon. "We got lucky," General Thaddeus said as they debriefed later. "If this fungal weapon had been deployed without warning, we would have lost countless lives before developing a countermeasure." "Not luck," Dr. Nellera corrected. "Earth's biological diversity. The Valorians are developing weapons based on principles that Earth organisms mastered millions of years ago, and humans have been developing countermeasures just as long." The general turned to Xander. "Your casual knowledge of Earth pathogens just saved a life, Officer Simmons. Just as your casual approach to the Zonthar helped us contain that threat." "I'm just glad it worked," Xander said honestly. "But the Valorians will adapt. They'll create new weapons. Which is why this initiative is now the Alliance's top priority," the general confirmed. "Every Earth organism, from mosquitoes to molds, needs to be studied for both offensive and defensive applications." 2 days later, with the immediate crisis contained, Xander found himself in the station's observation lounge, staring out at the distant stars. The weight of recent events still hung heavy on his mind. Zerk joined him, carrying 2 cups of a steaming beverage. "Earth coffee," he explained, offering one to Xander. "Your planet's cultural exchanges are becoming quite popular here." Xander accepted the cup gratefully. "Thanks. I've been thinking about home a lot lately. Understandable. Your world has suddenly become the center of attention for reasons no one expected. That's just it, Xander said, taking a sip of the coffee. We spent centuries trying to exterminate mosquitoes, fight fungal infections, and eliminate what we considered pests. Now they might be the key to defending the entire alliance. The universe often finds value where we least expect it, Zerk observed. On my world, there's a saying, what burns one hand warms another. They sat in companionable silence for a while, watching as ships came and went from the bustling research station. In just a few weeks, the Earth Biological Defense Initiative had grown from a speculative project to a critical alliance program. I received new orders today, Xander finally said. They're sending me back to Earth to help coordinate specimen collection. Apparently, my unique perspective as someone who recognizes both the mundane and strategic aspects of Earth organisms is valuable. You're going home, Zerk seemed surprised. I thought you would remain with the research team here, just temporarily. I'll be identifying and collecting samples of potentially useful organisms, everything from dust mites to deep-sea bacteria. Xander smiled faintly. And lots of mosquitoes, of course. Of course, Zerk agreed with a good-natured flick of his head crest. The mighty Xanthar, reduced to specimen jars by human hands. As the biome prepared for its return journey to Earth, Xander found himself in the research lab one last time, helping secure the specimen containers for transport. Dr. Nellera was overseeing the process, meticulously checking each containment field. I still find it remarkable, she said as they worked. The organisms humans consider pests or merely annoying are proving to be our strongest defense against biological warfare. Evolution is weird that way, Xander replied, sealing a container of mosquito eggs. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger, as the old saying goes. An apt description of both human history and current alliance strategy, Dr. Nellera agreed. The Valorians have spent decades developing these weapons in secret, never realizing Earth had already developed the countermeasures through natural selection. As the last containers were secured, Admiral Corvin arrived to inspect the preparations. His presence on the station had been announced only hours earlier, a sign of how important the initiative had become. Officer Simmons, he greeted Xander formally. Your actions over the past month have proven invaluable to Alliance security. Thank you, sir. Though honestly, I just swatted some mosquitoes and recognized a fungal infection. The Admiral's expression remained serious. Sometimes the most significant contributions appear mundane at first glance. Your casual handling of the Xanthar revealed a critical vulnerability in Valorian strategy. They've been developing weapons that Earth organisms countered millions of years ago. And now we're turning Earth's pests into Alliance assets, Xander said. Precisely. The Admiral gestured toward the view screen, where Earth was visible as a distant blue dot. Your mission to collect additional specimens is just the beginning. The Alliance Council has approved the establishment of a permanent Earth Biological Research Center. That's excellent news, sir. Indeed. And they've requested you serve as human liaison for the program once your collection mission is complete. Xander blinked in surprise. Me? I'm just a tactical officer. You're a tactical officer who recognized strategic assets where others saw only pests, the Admiral corrected. That perspective will be invaluable as we explore Earth's biological potential. As the biome broke orbit the next day, Xander stood on the observation deck watching Proxima Station recede into the distance. Beside him, Zerk and Dr. Nellera had joined him for a final view before they entered FTL. I never thought mosquitoes would make me important, Xander said, still processing his new assignment. Not mosquitoes, Dr. Nellera corrected gently. Your perspective. You saw connection where others saw only threat or annoyance. The Alliance needs that balance, Zerk added, especially now. As the stars began to blur with the activation of the FTL drive, Xander thought about the strange journey that had brought him here. A training exercise, a bioweapon attack, and one casual mosquito swat had changed everything not just for him, but potentially for the entire Alliance. Earth was about to share its biological knowledge with the galaxy, turning millions of years of pest management into the foundation of interstellar defense. And somehow, Xander Simmons, who had once complained about mosquito season in Georgia, was at the center of it all. The universe, it seemed, had a peculiar sense of humor. 6 months later, the Earth Biological Research Center was fully operational. Built in orbit around Earth to facilitate rapid specimen collection and research, the station had become a hub of Alliance scientific activity. Representatives from dozens of worlds worked alongside human scientists, cataloging Earth organisms and developing applications for Alliance defense. Xander, now Director of Human Alliance Coordination, had settled into his new role with surprising ease. His office overlooked both Earth below and the research laboratories, where his once casual observation about mosquitoes had spawned an entirely new field of study. Director Simmons, his assistant announced over the intercom, the Valorian peace delegation has arrived. Thank you, Xander replied. Please escort them to the conference room. I'll be there shortly. The news of the Valorian delegation's arrival sent a ripple of tension through him. After nearly a year of escalating biological warfare threats, the Valorian separatists had finally requested peace talks. The official reason was diplomatic reassessment, but Alliance intelligence knew the truth, the revelation that humans were naturally immune to their most potent bioweapons had fundamentally altered the strategic landscape. In the conference room, Xander found 3 Valorian representatives waiting, their crystalline exoskeletons reflecting the light in faceted patterns. Despite their imposing appearance, their posture conveyed uncertainty, something rarely seen in Valorian diplomats. Director Simmons, the lead delegate, greeted him. I am Ambassador Krell. These are my associates, Science Minister Vorax and Defense Attaché Zenith. Welcome to the Earth Biological Research Center, Xander replied formally. I trust your journey was comfortable. Quite, Ambassador Krell said, though the harmonic undertones of his voice suggested tension. We appreciate the Alliance's willingness to engage in these discussions. The Alliance has always preferred diplomacy to conflict, Xander reminded them. Though recent Valorian actions have tested that preference, Science Minister Vorax shifted uncomfortably. That is partly why we are here. Our miscalculation regarding human biological resilience has necessitated a strategic reassessment. Translation, Xander thought. Your mosquitoes ruined our bioweapon program. Aloud, he said, the Alliance is always open to peaceful resolution. What exactly does the Valorian separatist government propose? A mutual biological research exchange, Ambassador Krell stated. We have reviewed the preliminary findings from this facility with great interest. Earth organisms present, unexpected properties. Properties that neutralize your weapons, Xander said bluntly. Defense Attaché Zenith spoke for the first time, her crystalline structure vibrating with suppressed emotion. Director Simmons, let us be direct. The discovery that humans casually coexist with organisms that are lethal to most other sentient species has reevaluated our position. Our bioweapons program was predicated on the assumption of universal vulnerability. And now that assumption has been proven false, Xander concluded. Not merely false, Science Minister Vorax corrected. Inverted. The very organisms we weaponized are ones humans have evolved alongside. You possess natural countermeasures to our most advanced developments. Ambassador Krell leaned forward. Which is why we propose cooperation rather than continuation of conflict. Earth's biological diversity represents a resource too valuable to ignore. Xander studied the Valorians carefully. Their proposal seemed genuine. The strategic reality had shifted too dramatically for them to maintain their previous position. Still, decades of hostility couldn't be erased with one meeting. The Alliance Council will need to review any formal proposal, he finally said. But speaking unofficially, I believe cooperation would benefit all parties more than conflict. As the meeting concluded and the Valorian delegation departed, Dr. Nellera entered the conference room, having observed the proceedings remotely. They seemed sincere, she noted. Though Valorian body language is difficult to interpret. They're sincere about wanting access to Earth biology, Xander agreed. Whether that translates to lasting peace remains to be seen. Either way, the mosquitoes you so casually swatted have altered the course of interstellar politics. Dr. Nellera said with a flicker of her head tentacles, the equivalent of a smile in her species. Who would have thought? Xander mused. All those summer evenings complaining about mosquito bites, and they turn out to be our secret weapon. Later that evening, Xander stood in the station's arboretum, a carefully maintained collection of earth plants that doubled as a relaxation area for the station's personnel. Through the transparent ceiling, Earth was visible blue, green, and swirling white, his home world now seen in an entirely new light. Zerk joined him, now serving as chief of security for the research center. The Valorian delegation has departed. Initial reports suggest they'll recommend a formal cessation of hostilities to their government. Good, Xander said. Though I still find it surreal that mosquitoes helped broker peace. Not mosquitoes alone, Zerk corrected. The human perspective on them. Your species sees deadly biological agents as mere annoyances to be swatted. That casual resilience is what truly changed the equation. As they stood watching Earth rotate slowly below them, a small insect buzzed near Xander's ear. Without thinking, he swatted it casually. Speaking of which, he said with a slight smile, looking at the smashed mosquito on his palm. Some found their way into the arboretum, Zerk explained apologetically. The botanists are studying their interaction with earth plants. Xander wiped his hand on his uniform pants, just as he had done that first day in the training arena. Some things never change. And some things change everything, Zerk replied, looking meaningfully at the smear that had once been considered a deadly biological weapon. In that simple gesture, a casual swat, a moment of mild annoyance lay the foundation of a new understanding between species across the galaxy. What humans took for granted had become the cornerstone of Alliance security and potentially lasting peace. Xander smiled at the irony. All his years of military training, tactical studies, and combat preparation, and his most significant contribution to galactic security had been swatting a mosquito and recognizing a common fungal infection. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of humor after all.